Honourable Premier to make a ministerial statement. Mr. Premier.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. I rise today to mark the third anniversary of one of the darkest days of modern history. 3 years ago, Russia invaded Ukraine. Russia launched an unjustified, brutal attack on a peaceful neighbor. The scenes of Russian aggression shocked the conscience of people around the world. Helicopters attacking airports, civilians fleeing across shattered bridges, tanks rolling up city streets. Those fleeing the invasion knew what a Russian occupation meant for them. We saw bodies of Ukrainian civilians lying beside bicycles as if they'd been shot for sport. We saw victims of massacres lying in courtyards and mass graves. But we also saw scenes of incredible and remarkable bravery, outnumbered soldiers fighting off attackers, unarmed civilians blocking the path of tanks, a woman in a headscarf confronting an armed invader saying, quote, "Put these seeds in your pocket so at least sunflowers will grow when you fall." Honourable Speaker, I'm happy to report that after 3 years of slaughter, deprivation, air raids, unspeakable horrors, Kyiv stands free. Ukraine remains an independent, sovereign nation as its citizens want it to be, and may it ever be such. Ukraine did not start this war. Russia is unquestionably the aggressor in this illegal, immoral, unnecessary war. The pretext for the invasion was that the Ukrainians needed security. What they needed security from was clearly the threat from Russia. Russia has failed to conquer Ukraine because of the bravery of the Ukrainian people, their armed forces, and their democratically elected president. We saw that unvanquished Ukrainian spirit on display at the Invictus Games, Honourable Speaker, in Vancouver and Whistler. 35 resilient Ukrainian warriors competing, winning 30 medals, including 12 golds. Ukrainians are indomitable. They've shown that spirit in their long struggle for independence. You may have heard of the paramedic Yulia Peskova. She's also known as Tyra. She organized a volunteer ambulance corps called Tyra's Angels, saving Ukrainian civilians, Ukrainian soldiers, and yes, even Russian soldiers. She was captured and tortured by the Russians. When she was rescued, she needed both hips replaced. She then competed in the earlier Invictus Games, and went on to win 2 medals. The war may be far away geographically, but for many British Columbians, it is very close to their hearts. Canadians have historic and contemporary ties to Ukraine. That's why so many Canadians have stepped forward to help that nation and its people in their time of need. Some Ukrainians have even found sanctuary here in very far away British Columbia. So many people open their doors to Ukrainians in an expression of humanity and solidarity. I remember Shirley Bond, member for Prince George, talking about how Prince George welcomed 170 displaced Ukrainians with more on the way. Volunteers met them at the airport. They gave them furniture, supplies to start their new lives. There were uncountable acts of kindness. I know the Ukrainians would do no less for us if the roles were reversed. This is an historic moment. It's a time that calls on all of us to be strong of heart and clear-eyed, have a strong moral center. That's why British Columbians join other Canadians in standing with the people of Ukraine as they defend their land. It is unacceptable to have dictators bully and attack peaceful neighbors. The free democratic world must uphold Ukraine's independence, their sovereignty, and their territorial integrity. We are in a very dangerous place indeed if we allow bullies and dictators to run roughshod against democratic and peaceful neighbors. Democratic societies like our own offer the greatest freedoms and opportunities for people. It seems we're increasingly in a topsy-turvy world, Honourable Speaker. Spirited political debate has always happened, but it was built on a shared understanding of basic facts. We could disagree on an approach, but we agreed on the underlying character of the issues we faced. Now, some call into question the basic facts around science and history. They ask us to disbelieve things we can see with our own eyes, that we hear with our own ears. Lies and disinformation are the building blocks behind recent statements about Ukraine and its leaders. To be clear, President Zelensky is no dictator. There is a dictator in this conflict. His name is Vladimir Putin. The Russian threat to Europe is so obvious that Sweden and Finland, after 75 years of resisting joining NATO, despite sharing borders with the Soviet Union, have now joined NATO. The Swedes and the Finns understand that a threat to Ukraine is a threat to them. And a threat to Ukraine is a threat to every nation that wants to remain independent. We live in an age when trade and political alliances are shattering and new ones need to be formed. As just one example, the threat of tariffs, or worse, from our southern neighbor jeopardizes 200 years of relationship. In all of human history, you'd have a hard time finding two countries that work together so fruitfully and peacefully as ours. A trade war is obviously the last thing we want, but we will do everything necessary to protect the people and businesses of British Columbia. In these troubled times, it's important, it's more than ever important, that free and democratic people band together. We stand with the Ukrainian people against Russian aggression. We salute their bravery, we salute their resilience. They deserve a fair and just peace, with their independence and sovereignty not only preserved, but made stronger than ever.